Ethan Cole was the only blind human in the Galactic Alliance. He had lost his sight years ago during a deep space rescue when his ship's reactor exploded, yet he never saw his blindness as weakness. He had learned to live by sound, scent, and touch. To him, every vibration told a story. The hum of an engine, the breath of a person, the tone behind a voice. When the Alliance invited Earth to join through a marriage bond, he was chosen as humanity's representative. The arrangement sounded peaceful, a union between species to build trust. But behind the glittering speeches, politics whispered quietly. The Virelians, proud and graceful aliens known for their perfect skin and shining eyes, wanted nothing to do with humans. They thought humans were too rough, too emotional, too unpredictable. Still, a treaty was useful. So the council decided to send one of their own daughters to marry the human. They did not choose one of the noble or beautiful sisters. Instead, they chose Lyra, the quiet one, the sister many pitied but few loved. Her skin carried uneven markings that glowed in strange colors. Her hair shimmered in two tones, not one. Her eyes shone unevenly, one bright, one dim. The people whispered that she was imperfect. The council believed the human would not know the difference. After all, he could not see her. Lyra agreed without protest. She had always felt like a shadow beside her shining sisters. She thought maybe, just maybe, a blind husband would not flinch when he touched her face. She had no dreams of romance, only a small hope for quiet acceptance. The day Ethan arrived, the sky of Virelia glowed pale gold. The council chamber smelled of crystal air and polished stone. Everyone waited to see the strange human. When he entered, silence followed. He walked slowly, guided by a small device on his wrist that clicked softly as it mapped the space around him. He wore a calm smile and stood tall, dressed in simple gray. His unseeing eyes faced forward, but his movements were sure. Confident. "Ambassador Cole," said one counselor, his tone polite but distant. "This is your Virelian partner, Lady Lyra." Ethan turned toward the sound of her breathing. "It's an honor, Lady Lyra," he said with warmth. "I've heard your voice in the recordings." "You sound kind," Lyra blinked. "You heard my voice?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "I studied the tones before coming. I wanted to know who I would meet." He extended his hand gently. She hesitated, then placed hers in his. His grip was steady, respectful, and his thumb brushed the edge of her palm. "You have warm hands," he said softly. "Do you work with living things? I tend to the crystal gardens," she said, surprised. "Then that explains it," Ethan said with a smile. "Hands that care for life always carry warmth." Whispers rippled through the room. Some council members frowned. They expected confusion, not poetry, but Ethan's voice was calm and Lyra's nervousness slowly eased. For the first time in her life, someone had spoken to her as if she was worth listening to. Their marriage was quiet. No grand feast, no music, just signatures and vows spoken under the twin moons. Afterward, they were given a modest home near the edge of the Virelian capital. Ethan didn't mind. He preferred silence, where he could feel the rhythm of a new world. Lyra guided him through the rooms, explaining where everything was. During the first days, she tried to keep distance. She feared he would somehow sense her flaws, but Ethan seemed to understand things others never could. He knew when she was smiling by the change in her breathing. He noticed her sadness in the way her steps slowed. One evening, they sat near the glowing pond outside their home. The water reflected the colors of the sky. Though Ethan could not see, he listened to the gentle ripples. "Lyra," he asked quietly, "why do you always pause before you speak to me?" She looked away. "Because I'm not what you expect," she whispered. He tilted his head. "And what do I expect?" "Someone beautiful," she said. "Someone perfect." "The council gave you the one they thought you wouldn't notice," Ethan laughed softly. "Lyra, I don't judge people by what my eyes can't see. I notice tone, honesty, and kindness. That's how I see." Her throat tightened. "No one has ever said that to me." "Then they must be blind," he said with a small smile. For a moment, the air was still. The wind carried the scent of glowing trees. Lyra felt something inside her shift, something light and dangerous, like hope. In the days that followed, Ethan began exploring the Virelian ways through sound. He carried a recorder that translated light into gentle tones. When Lyra described the colors of the sunset, he asked her to describe them as feelings. "Tell me what red feels like," he said one day. "It feels alive," she said, "like a heartbeat before a storm." "And blue?" "Like the quiet after crying." Ethan nodded. "That's perfect. You see, you're my eyes, Lyra. but maybe I can teach you to hear beauty too. He built a small device using human sensors that converted colors into music. When Lyra tested it, soft melodies filled the room, gentle waves of sound that changed as she moved her hand. She gasped. "It's singing." "That's the light around you," Ethan said. "Every color has a voice." "Even you? Me?" "Yes," he said, turning his head slightly. "Your markings reflect energy differently. When you stand near the sensor, the tones shift to a rhythm I've never heard before." Lyra stood silently, her heart racing. "You mean I sound different?" "Beautifully different," he said. "Like a pattern made of stars." That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the twin moons shimmer on her hands. For the first time in her life, she wondered if maybe her markings weren't ugly. They were just part of her song. But not everyone shared Ethan's kindness. In the city, the whispers grew. Some Virelians mocked the council's decision. "The human hasn't complained yet. Maybe he can't tell what they gave him," they joked. Others said Lyra used tricks to fool him. One afternoon, when Ethan and Lyra visited the market, a council messenger stopped them. "Ambassador Cole," the man said sharply, "I trust you are satisfied with your arrangement?" Ethan smiled. "Very much so." The messenger gave Lyra a thin smile. "I hope you realize your fortune. Few humans would be so patient with imperfection." Ethan turned toward the voice. "Imperfection?" he repeated softly. The messenger faltered. "A figure of speech, Ambassador. Nothing more." Ethan's calm tone turned to steel. "On my world, we measure worth by courage and kindness, not by symmetry. Lyra's the bravest person I've met." The crowd fell silent. Lyra's heart pounded. No one had ever defended her like that. The messenger bowed stiffly and left. Ethan turned to her. "Did I embarrass you?" She shook her head. "No. You made me feel seen." That evening, as they walked home, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. Lyra frowned. "That's strange," she said. "The air feels heavy." Ethan paused, tilting his head. His hearing caught something others might have missed. A low vibration deep beneath the ground, slow and growing. "Something's moving below the surface," he murmured. "Maybe an energy storm," she said. "They form from the core sometimes." As the sound deepened, lights flickered across the horizon. The city alarm began to echo. Ethan turned toward the sound of panic. "What's happening?" Lyra's markings began to glow faintly, reacting to the energy. "It's coming from the crystal fields," she said, her voice shaking. "It's building pressure. If it breaks, then guide me," Ethan said firmly. "You know this world." "Take my hand." She hesitated. "You want to go toward it?" "Yes," he said, gripping her hand tightly. "We can't run from something this big. Maybe we can stop it." Lyra stared at him, heart racing. No one had ever asked her for help before. No one had trusted her strength. Yet Ethan's voice carried certainty that reached deeper than fear. "All right," she whispered. "Follow me." Together they ran into the rising storm, the blind human and the alien no one wanted, racing toward the light that could destroy them both. The wind howled as the sky of Virelia turned from gold to burning white. The ground cracked beneath Ethan's feet and the sound vibrated like a living creature. He could feel every tremor through his boots, every pulse of energy that shook the air. Lyra held his hand tightly, guiding him through the glowing dust. Around them, crystal towers glowed and shattered one by one. The energy storm wasn't like anything Virelia had faced before. It wasn't wind or lightning. It was sound and light together, a deep humming that grew louder and louder until it felt like the world was singing in pain. "Lyra, where's it strongest?" Ethan shouted over the roar. "Near the crystal heart," she cried. "That's where the core energy flows to the surface. If it breaks, the whole city will fall. Then we go there." They stumbled forward, every step heavy. Lyra's glowing markings flickered brighter as they approached the heart of the storm. Her body reacted to the energy, the patterns along her arms lighting in rhythm with the vibrations. Ethan could hear the change in the air. It wasn't random. It had a pattern like a song. "Lyra, listen," Ethan said, his voice calm even in the chaos. "It's not wild, it's trying to stay in rhythm." She frowned. "You mean it's alive?" "Not alive. Resonant, like an echo that lost control." Lyra pressed her hands to the ground. The moment she did, the storm's light pulsed brighter, responding to her touch. She gasped. "It's reacting to me." "Then you can control it," Ethan said. She shook her head. "I don't know how." "Yes, you do," he said firmly. "You've always lived in its rhythm." You said your markings hum when the air shifts. You said color feels like a song. That's what this storm is, sound and light together. You can calm it. Lyra closed her eyes. The markings along her face began to glow steadily. She focused on the vibrations running through her body, the hum in her bones, the rhythm of the storm's voice. Slowly, she began to hum back, matching its pitch. Ethan heard it immediately. Her tone was soft at first, then stronger, steadier, until it blended with the storm's roar. He stepped closer and placed his hand on her shoulder, lending his strength. "You're doing it," he said quietly. "Keep going." The air started to shift. The chaotic vibration began to form a smoother wave. The glowing cracks around them slowed, and the light dimmed slightly. But then a surge of power exploded from the ground, throwing them backward. Lyra fell hard, gasping. Ethan crawled to her side. "Lyra! Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," she whispered, though her hands trembled. "But it's too strong. I can't hold it alone," Ethan thought fast. "Then we'll do it together. You can shape it and I'll guide the tone." "But you can't hear it the same way I can," she said. He smiled faintly. "No, but I can feel it. Sound is vibration. If we link hands, I can feel every pulse you make. We'll make harmony together." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. She reached out and their hands joined once more. Her energy passed through his palms like warm light. Together they stepped toward the storm's core again, where a giant crystal pulsed like a heart. "Start the tone," Ethan said. "I'll follow." Lyra began to hum again, low, deep, and steady. Ethan closed his eyes and matched the rhythm through the feel in his bones. Soon his voice joined hers, human tone blending with alien song. The air began to vibrate differently, softer now, more stable. The crystal responded. It glowed gently as if listening. For a moment the storm quieted. But then another wave of energy surged outward, testing their strength. Lyra cried out as the light flared, but Ethan didn't let go. "Stay with me," he shouted. "You can do this." Her breath came fast. The markings on her skin flickered, and suddenly, she saw the rhythm not as chaos but as patterns. Spirals of sound wrapping around her world. She raised her other hand and spread her fingers, tracing invisible lines in the air. The spirals began to align. Ethan felt the vibration change again. It was working. He shifted his tone slightly, finding the exact note that balanced hers. When the two sounds met perfectly, the ground stopped shaking. The crystals around them shimmered with calm light. The roaring hum softened into a peaceful echo. Then came silence. Lyra collapsed against him, exhausted but smiling. The sky slowly cleared, the golden light of Virelia returning to normal. "It's over," she whispered. Ethan squeezed her hand. "No, you ended it." When they walked back to the city, crowds were already gathering. Council members, soldiers, and citizens stood frozen in disbelief. They had seen everything, the strange light. The way the ugly sister had walked into the storm with the blind human and come out glowing like the sun. One of the counselors stepped forward, his voice shaking. "What did you do?" Lyra looked at the glowing patterns still shimmering faintly on her arms. "I listened," she said simply, "and I sang back." Ethan stood beside her, calm and proud. "She didn't just save your world," he said. "She taught it how to listen again." The council bowed their heads. For the first time, Lyra saw respect in their eyes, not pity. She felt tears forming. All her life she had been called imperfect, unwanted, strange. But now even the wind seemed to whisper her name with honor. That night the stars over Virelia burned brighter. The news spread quickly. How a human who couldn't see had helped a Virelian who wasn't seen at all, and together they had saved an entire city. The people called it the resonance of two worlds. In the days that followed, scientists studied the event. They named the new harmonic energy Lyra resonance. They learned that her markings were not a flaw but a rare biological feature that allowed her to connect with natural frequencies of the planet's core. What was once seen as strange became a symbol of balance and hope. The council offered both Ethan and Lyra positions of honor. But Ethan refused the grand titles. "We don't need palaces," he said kindly. "We just need peace, and maybe a home near the lake." They built a small home near the glowing lake where the light always sang softly over the water. Every evening, Lyra sat beside Ethan, describing the colors of the sunset while he listened to the tones of the world around them. One evening, months later, Lyra asked him quietly, "Do you ever wish you could see me, Ethan?" He smiled gently. "I already do," she blinked. "But how?" Because I see you in sound and warmth in the way the air changes when you smile, he said. You are the most beautiful song I've ever heard. Tears filled her eyes. They once thought you wouldn't notice, she whispered. Ethan reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek. I noticed everything that mattered. From that day on, their story spread across the stars. It became a lesson for many worlds, that beauty could be felt without sight, that courage could rise from kindness, and that even those the world ignores can hold the power to save it. Years later, when travelers came to Veralia, they would still visit the glowing lake. There they would see a blind human sitting beside an alien woman with shining skin, their hands always joined as if sharing one heartbeat. When visitors asked about the strange melody that always drifted from the water, locals would smile and say, that's their song, the sound of two souls who saw each other when no one else did. And every night, as twin moons rose and silver light touched their quiet home, Ethan and Lyra would listen together to the music of their world, proof that love could see what eyes never could.